the other thing people have to understand is it's sort of like pay me now or pay me later. I mean, these are things that may have been deferred, but at some point in time, it's not like they never were going to need to be done. It may be now brought that it's a little bit more urgent to do the repairs, but anytime you have a sewer infrastructure system, there's going to be capital costs, and there's going to be a part of the sewer rent that's collected on a quarterly basis is going to cover those quarterly costs. It's cover those capital repairs.
So,
it's not as if these are brand new repairs that you never, ever would have encountered.
in a nutshell,
Part of a sewer system.
the sewer authority invests and approves capital improvements. The township said that we don't have anything to do with the operation of the facility. The township,
Not what they said.
No, they didn't say that.
Not what he said.
No.
the township oversees and hires all the people and the staff and manages them.
Correct.
So with all these issues going on at the plant, nobody said anything, ever, about anything that was needed.
No, not a request, maybe a budget request.
No, we haven't had a capital improvement request from, I think the last capital improvement was done in 2000. The last capital improvement that was approved by the authority was the replacement of a boiler to keep the little bugs happy that digest the sewage. That was done last year into this year. Before that, it had been 14, 15 years since any capital requests had been done.
And no one from township management felt it necessary over 15 years to inspect this facility, to go there and see it for themselves over the people that they're monitoring and managing. It makes no sense.
It's the sewer authority's job to oversee capital improvements there.
I'm talking
They also
about,
had a plant manager that they relied upon
Right,
as doing his job.
right, but that person needed to be managed. And I asked the wrong question last month. Not if they were fired, but who was responsible for managing all of this?
The sewer plant manager.
Who did he report to?
He's reported to in his career
No.
6 different managers.
But now it's you. It's
I've been here for 8 years of the 50 years he's been employed here.
So did you ever ask how are operations? How's
I was
maintenance down at the sewer?
I was directed not to interfere in the sewer department.
Directed,
That's all I'll say. That's all I'm going to say. I'm
Directed by
plead the
who?
fifth at this point. Just kidding.
who would direct you to not do your job?
Board of Supervisors, and not this Board of Supervisors.
Wait, what?
I got to do it. I'm sorry. Got to defend myself.
The Board of Supervisors directed you not to do your job?
No.
That you just got a raise for? Seriously?
No.
No, that makes sense.
Mr. Hughes, that's not what he's saying. He's saying that the sewer, the board of
No,
supervisors.
he just said the Board of Supervisors directed him not to interfere with the sewer authority. He just said it.
Not with the sewer authority, the sewer plant operation.
Wow. Anybody else want to ask that question?
So my name is Sean Walsh. I attended the meeting at the beginning of March of the Sewer Authority, and it's apparent that what the gap has been is that the management of the actual operation failed to ask for money over the years to improve the infrastructure. So it's really been running in a run-to-fail mode, and unfortunately now we've got this catch-up situation. So although the plant can operate successfully, process sewage, meet the discharges, we've now got the situation where between deferred maintenance and capital improvements being required, we're going to have to spend some money. So the good news is that for 15 years we've not really been paying our way for what it takes to run a sewer plant. The bad news is now we have to spend some money to catch up.
Correct.
I also think that, and I'm not making an excuse for anything, but I also think that during the last, how long has the TMDL lawsuit's been going on? 9 years. I do believe that it ran parallel, where there was an uncertainty that this TMDL EP ran with the operations during that period of time until the courts decided whether we were going to put out, we as the township or the sewer authority was going to be putting out $1.5 million or 15 million
24 million.
or 50 million. Am I correct that those numbers could have gone?
15 to 18 million dollars.
So do you believe while you're on that period of time that the focus of the sewer authority was focused on that TMDL process?
Was for a while, but then the courts have ruled. I mean, we had representation, and they successfully pushed back the EPA.
But you're still there this
Still,
week.
It's not resolved.
Yeah, they're meeting tomorrow.
We're meeting tomorrow. And we still don't know, do we?
Yeah, but it's a lot less than what it was before.
Right. But up until recently, we did not know.
But I think, Ray, your point is taken that some of the focus may have been to not really invest a lot of capital, to not know exactly what the remedy that EPA was going to, was going to mandate. So, to the extent that they kept thinking it was going to get resolved, they could continue to wait to see. There's no sense making an improvement if EPA is going to make us do this other improvement that could either nullify what was done or, because of the cost involved in trying to comply with the TMDL limit, that might have been some of the mindset.
Which brings
Not
us,
all, but some.
So if I may, one of the things that we found, and was even discussed at the last sewer authority meeting, was exactly that. There was a discussion of, well, we didn't want to necessarily defer maintenance, we just wanted to defer capital improvements until we knew what the results of the TMDL was. I don't think anybody on the authority, I can't speak for the authority, but again, just from being at these meetings and being present, I don't think anybody knew it was going to take 9 years.
Right.
So, these improvements that happen in any kind of mechanical plant, whether it's a wastewater treatment plant or an industry, are not linear, they're exponential. So they get to a certain period of their useful life and then they fall off very quickly. And it appears that a lot of these things that we're discussing and we discussed in the capital improvement plan, 9 years ago, they weren't in the condition they were in. It happened sometime during those 9 years that they tapered off, with the exception of a few things that never worked right, as Mr. Casey had brought up. The other thing that we've seen was there was a direct correlation between the existing staff and the authority, and there was a professional relationship there that discussed the capital improvements and the operation of the plant. When you look at the Chapter 94 reports, and we were able to pull a couple of them, and the Chapter 94 report, just for everybody's benefit, is the annual waste load management report that's required by DEP under Title 25. So every municipality that has a wastewater treatment plant has to produce this report on a yearly basis and submit it to DEP for review and approval. And in that report, you discuss the condition of your assets, both the wastewater treatment plant, the wastewater treatment plant, the pumping stations, as well as the collection system. And there was really no evidence of what we looked at that would suggest some of the conditions that we found. And again, some of those conditions could have been as recent as a couple of years, or they could have been as long as 6. We have no way to know looking back on it. And it's not worth, as we discussed with the authority, doing some kind of forensic engineering evaluation to try to figure out and go backwards when we know there's a plan going forwards. And that deferred maintenance, even though it was really, they were trying to defer the capital until they knew what the results of the TMDL were, they had also deferred maintenance as a result of that. Because there is that really fine line, which was discussed at a couple of the authority meetings, between what's operation and maintenance and what's a capital improvement. Is a shovel maintenance or is a shovel capital improvement? Those are very gray lines. It's very difficult to distinguish between those. But what we were able to develop and what we recommended was all those 2016 capital improvements have nothing to do with the TMDL. So what we recommended was trying to set the stage, so to speak, for capital, to make sure that when the TMDL is known, whatever that total phosphorus limit ends up being, that the plan is in the best possible shape it can be going into those improvements. And part of that is actually, and I wanted to mention tonight, that the wastewater treatment plant staff is going through this very robust and intricate sampling plan. It's one of 2 weeks that they're going to be doing it this year. They're taking over 100 samples between the different unit processes, know exactly what's happening between each of them, whether they're performing above what was anticipated or below what's anticipated, and that'll help develop a model for whatever that TMDL limit is. We'll have a plan of attack to address it in the most cost-effective manner possible.
but we still don't know at this point. What we've been basically reaching out for is that you've given us a full report at our request.
Yes.
We presented that report through you to the authority. The authority has the right to pick, choose, reject, do some of it now, do some of it later, not do some. So I'm just, we're waiting to see, short of any of these items that we pointed out, what's going to be done, because we do not have control over what we are recommending through you.
Yes, so the township and their staff has the right to make recommendations, but ultimately the authority approves whether or not to finance those recommendations.
And to address some of the concerns I've been hearing, as a new supervisor, this is quite alarming for me to learn this. This is something that's occurred obviously before. Some of our tenures not been on the bench, but I want the public to know that, it's a learning experience. There's a lot of things that you mentioned, Marge mentioned, some other people, Kid Tom, that I think definitely we can improve upon going forward. Obviously, it wasn't the most ideal with communication, and I think communication is important. Maybe a sewer authority isn't the right way to go. Something we might have to think about in the future. But to sit here and hear about these obvious shortcomings, when it happened, when it occurred, who let it occur, I mean, these are questions that it's understandable that you want answers for. We're a little bit bound about going into some details as far as personnel. It's something that we can't discuss at this point, but I can assure you that, and I don't want to speak for the board, but I'm pretty confident that I can in this effort, that this learning experience is something that we're just never going to let happen again. A $14 million expenditure over 10 years, it's a lot of money. And I understand that systems that don't work, a grid system that, I don't know, what's that, $1 million or something, that never worked. It was never, according to your report, if I remember correctly, it was never fit for purpose. It never operated. These are things that are quite alarming. That thing was put in, what, 20 years ago or 10 years ago? Okay. So, when you hear the concerns, we're not trying to poo-poo them. We understand we're there. When I heard it, I mean, if you would have seen my face when I heard this, I think you would have known how upset I was. So we're going to move forward, and we're going to try to do this with the cooperation of the sewer authority. And I think education is the way to go. These studies that we have, present them, and I think your input in this process going forward, both here and at the sewer authority, is extremely important, because after all, it is your money. And if we're not getting it from you, it is user fees for the sewer authority, and you all pay your fees. So I would highly recommend, as was stated before by Mr. Murphy, please attend these meetings. Thank you.
But I would like to just add a comment. Some issues have been raised. It's important to keep in mind that some of these changes are very recent. I was asked by the Board of Supervisors last fall if I would consider an appointment to the sewer authority when a vacancy happened. I agreed, because of what was discovered late in the fall. I am very concerned with the issues that are there. Some of the issues, Mr. Casey, that you just raised this evening, about a grid system that hasn't worked. The engineer who designed the grid system and put it in place is still there. In January, at the organizational meeting for the sewer authority, I opposed him being selected as the engineer here. It was a 4-to-1 vote. I didn't win. Just yesterday, and after we had some disagreement last week at the sewer authority meeting here, once again, I did not agree to have that engineer be responsible for any of the recommended changes down there because of the problems that have occurred at the sewer plant before. That engineer is still there. Well, I got an email yesterday after I went to correct the minutes, and the minutes should be available for the meeting last week. I invite all of you to take a look at those. But I'll just read this. Dear Ted, Glace was selected as the engineer of record for the year 2016 at our organizational meeting in January. I respect your opinion, but you are the newest member of the board, and no one else agreed with you at the January meeting. As far as I am concerned, the issue is settled for the 2016 calendar year. Can we please agree to move forward on the issue? Well, I replied. I'm not going to read my whole reply, but at the meeting in April, I intend on putting a motion before the sewer authority to replace that engineer. I don't believe that an engineer who had the responsibility to design systems and report to the sewer authority members should be there. I asked him in January at the organizational meeting, what happened? He told me nobody wanted to spend money. It's not the Board of Supervisors that spends the money down there and agrees to do it. It's the sewer authority. A sewer authority member who's been there for quite some time essentially directed me to shut up and knock it off and quit opposing what they want to do. Well, that doesn't sit well with me. It never has. When somebody tells me to shut up and sit down, I kind of fight back a little bit. It's not responsible for a municipal authority like this to ignore its responsibilities to township staff, township residents, to the other townships that contribute into this. This situation is one that, for whatever reason, has been kept from the Board of Supervisors for a number of years. At the initial presentation by HRG saying the grid system didn't work, the members of the sewer authority just looked at each other. They expressed shock. I don't know if that was the first time they heard about it, but the personnel changes that have been made down at the plant have brought about a better operation where the people down there now who are the township employees who are managing the plant, the day-to-day operations down there, have had a very good back and forth with the engineers in preparing these reports, and even the township employees at the sewer plant have stated at that meeting last week that they wanted HRG to be the engineer and go forward with all the projects. Well, that fell on 2 deaf ears last week. So go to the meeting. And if you have concerns with this, go there. And Mr. Casey, I invite you to go there too. You speak very well about these issues, and they are very important issues. But I don't believe anybody up here is able to answer the questions that you have tonight, not fully. Maybe they can. There's some other sewer authority members down there that have been there for a while. I've only been there since the end of October, since November. So I can't answer all those questions with what happened before. But as a former Board of Supervisors member, I do not remember any occasion where there were any issues with capital improvements being brought forward. There was a Board of Supervisors member who was down there quite often and was to report back what was happening here. There was a sewer plant manager and there was an engineer who oversaw all things. I don't know if reports were made by the engineer to the sewer plant manager or to the authority members. I can't answer that question. I don't have access to that information. But those questions those are things that would be appropriate to ask to the sewer authority.
And I think this discussion obviously needs to go there. That's where it needs to be.
So thank you.
That's where it needs to be.
I just want to say something. My name's Doug Wade. I'm Doc Wade's son. I'm getting a little emotional about this because my dad was down there all the time.
Don't.
But all right. But at the sewer authority meetings, they did rely on John Scott to update them on how things were doing at the plant on a day-to-day basis. So I don't think it's fair to say the sewer authority board members had to know all the intricacy processes that were happening day-to-day down there. I mean, of course, my dad, he was down there, at the meetings. But he didn't know every little detail. He relied on John Scott to give him updates. And then John Scott reports to...
Well, hopefully, what we've done to present to the authority through HRG will begin to be initiated.
I don't want to stand for this. I just wanted to, I don't like to be rude. I'm really encouraged by the changes that have taken place and just knowing what's going on. As citizens, that's all we want to know. We want to know about our local government and the decisions that are being made and where our tax dollars and our
We've tried to be
fees are
very
going.
open with this.
And I appreciate that. So I'm so encouraged by going to the sewer authority meeting,
Good.
seeing Mr. Murphy's participation on there, and Mr. Fox is obviously just incredible, and Mike Moffat is just, he seems like he's just, he has a big task, but he seems so capable. So
20 years there, he's going to
I'm
be just
encouraged
wonderful.
by so many things.
That's
example. The November 4th meeting that you're speaking to, that Mr. Fox presented his initial report to the Board of Supervisors and also the Sewer Authority Board. On November 4th, I sent an email to Mr. Lalonde because I knew of this joint meeting that night. And I said, Mr. Lalonde, what are the agenda items for the joint meeting with the West Goshen Sewer Authority on November 4th, 2015? And his response, in short, is, there really is no agenda for the Board of Supervisors meeting tonight. The authority has invited the board to their regularly scheduled meeting to be provided an update on the EPA lawsuit. Well, I now know that's not the truth. That's not what happened at that meeting.
That was the majority of the meeting.
That's what the meeting was.
Their counsel, the sewer authority has special counsel that's handling the TMD litigation. He came and a lot of the meeting was an executive session to bring the township up to speed on where that case is. So that was a huge part of the meeting.
A huge part of the meeting, but their initial assessment his report says at the request of township staff, HRG completed an initial assessment of the wastewater treatment plant on October 15th and presented the findings to the township manager and public works director on October 16th, to the Board of Supervisors on October 28th. I don't see any meetings, or the public wasn't advised of a meeting that's on October 28th. And to the authority on November 4th. I came to that meeting on November 4th, and all the audience members were asked to leave because you were all going into an executive session.
Discuss litigation.
That was the litigation for the TMDL.
Right.
That had nothing to do, we didn't have we were just in discovery by bringing HRG down here. The executive session was
Yeah.
Mr. Unruh's request for the TMDL.
Right, and it was the special counsel, and I'm forgetting his name right now, but that's who.
But-
Yeah, and we still don't, like I said, they're doing that tomorrow. They're completely two different items.
And Marcia,
for that.
you were at the last meeting, we spent an hour tonight. I don't know what else you want as far as transparency. This board it doesn't have to deal with this in terms of, it could be dealt with at the sewer authority meeting. They're trying to show you that it's something that concerns them as the lessee of the sewer system, and understanding that the ratepayers ultimately have to pay for it, that they're dedicating their time and effort at a public meeting to bring this to everybody's attention.
And we have
So
paid.
I don't know what else you want them to do.
Well, I would like, for instance, the information that I got, the dollar figures that I've handed out to a few people tonight, I got that information from East Goshen Township website. West Goshen Township doesn't have that information on their website. This report that I'm reading from Mr. Fox, I had to pull up East Goshen Township website. Why can't I find this on
What were you
the
looking at?
township website? It's nowhere to be found.
HRG report? Are you looking at the HRG report published
No.
on the website? Or
No,
not?
on East Goshen Township website, they publish pages 1 through 6, basically,
Okay.
of the capital improvement plan. And also
You mean the HRG
Yes.
report that was done?
the
Okay.
first 6 pages of the wastewater treatment plan.
Okay.
And again, back to transparency, they're able to put all this information that you discussed tonight, not just the agenda online, but also the police report or the building report. So everything, or the finance report. So all those reports, one can read those reports online before the meeting. So when you all approve the treasurer's report, as I sit here in the audience and everybody else, we have no idea what bills are being paid. But on East Goshen, on the borough, all that information is there. So it's great.
And we'll make it effort, we've been doing it this year to make it better.
Thank you.
I just have one final, just a clarification point. The board appoints the members to the sewer authority.
Yes,
Who removes them?
You can't.
can't.
That's for a term.
They serve into their set term. There is
Perfect question.
There is no legal way to remove
Unless they've
authority
missed
member.
3 consecutive meetings for no excuse, then they can be removed. But that's under the Municipal Authorities Act, there's a defined law for once they're appointed, how they can be removed.
If you remember, and I don't want, I know we have I'm sorry, we have a full agenda to do, just one more thing. if you remember when we were discussing, aren't you, the Stormwater Authority and the discussions back and forth with regards to the authority, the discovery that I made and with those discussions with you was exactly what happens, when you form an authority.
Right.
And that's why we stood back with the Stormwater Authority item, waiting for House Bill 1325 that would not have to create one, because you see the difficulties, as Mr. Casey's right. What we do as a Board of Supervisors is appoint to the authority, when you form the authority.
Right.
When, from that point on, we have no problem. The only other item we could do, and is to expand, add more members to that authority. Whether that would be a wise thing to do or not, I do not know. We have talked about it. We can go from 5 to 9, we can go from 5 to 7. So we've talked about all sorts of items. Whether that would be a better solution or not, I guess it would depend upon who the 2 you'd add or who the 4 you'd add. But we've seen progress down there. I mean, and Phil has also mentioned that there seems to be it. So we're hopefully, with the energy of HRG, going to see progress to get at least major capital expenditures and then put a long-term situation together. We're very satisfied with the personnel operations right now and are on top of it. And I can assure you that, as Chris said, from that point forward, we went. So, I'd like to get into the other agenda. I would say again, please, attend the sewer authority. Okay?
One more thing. At the next meeting, the next supervisors meeting, I'm going to bring up a couple of things. One of being the shooting range and any progress or any problems going on there.
Well, you're giving Joe a warning. He can give you an update on that next meeting.
I don't have to have it today.
Got it?
All right, but I'm
Thank
going
you.
to bring it up the next time. And a
Thank
few
you.
other things that have happened in the past that doesn't need to be discussed now.
Thank you. You can always call me. You got my number.
I know that.
I'm there till the end of April,
The what?
I'm there till the end of April. Mr. Woodward.
You told me nay.
No, well, I'm a doctor. Well,
Sneaky guy.
I went a month early, and, kind of done a little therapy for me in May. So, Mr. Woodward is going to be occupying my office, and we look forward to that. Between him and Mike Maffa and everybody down there, we're pretty excited about that. And yeah, it will be, so that you know, the formal, I signed the papers today, April 28th. So anyway, we're going to do the agenda. So that's wastewater treatment plant. I'm sorry, but these things need to be dealt with. Reports of the month.